Hello. Okay, so tonight in our language arts video, we get to learn a new punctuation mark. Raise your hand if you're excited. New punctuation mark? Yeah? Okay, just me? That's okay. So, punctuation marks that we have so far, they go at the end of the sentences, right? We get to learn two new ones today. Oh my goodness, this is like the best day ever. So, we have periods, we have exclamation points, and we have question marks, okay? Those are the three that go at the end of the sentence, right? And we also use periods for abbreviations whenever we have a shortened version. So like Mr., when we, instead of writing M-I-S-T-E-R, we write M-R with a period, right? So we use it for abbreviations too. But most of those go at the end of a sentence. So we're going to learn about two types of punctuation marks today that go in the middle of a sentence. Sometimes they go at the end, but they can go in the middle, okay? We don't really have a period in the middle of a sentence or an exclamation point in the middle of a sentence, do we? No, they go at the end. So we get to learn about ones that can go in the middle. All right, so our journal entry is called, let's pick blue for this one, quotation marks. Quotation marks. Okay, and I want you to put a little bracket around this part right here. Have you ever heard of a quote? Yes, you've heard of a quote because we read a quote from Snowflake Bentley today, right? What was that? What did we read? It was something that he what? That he said. So a quote is when we write down something, or when we don't necessarily have to write it down, but we are going to write it down in this case. But a quote is when we say what someone has said, okay? So we're going to write that little note. Put my little keyboard up here. So a quote, and we'll do a little colon right here to tell that that's what we're talking about, is what someone says. Said. We'll say said. What someone said. Okay? So, what do you think quotation marks go around? They go around what someone has said, okay? So, quotation marks look like this. They're gorgeous, right? They look like this. So go ahead and circle those like this, and then they kind of face the other direction. It's kind of like a mirror image, okay? And it looks like little C's. They're not full like C's though. They're more like little like that, okay? And they always come in pairs, okay? Except for another situation that you'll learn whenever you're older. But for right now, they come in pairs. You got to put two on this side, two on this side. And guess what goes in the middle? Guess. I bet you can guess. What someone said. What goes in the middle is what a person said. Or we'll just say what someone said. Actually, erase that. We're not going to write that. We're going to write the quote. Okay? So there is another punctuation mark we're going to talk about called a comma. You've heard of a comma before. We're going to label these QM for quotation marks. So just so you remember what they are. QM, QM. Okay. So a comma is what you guys call an apostrophe. Remember when we talked about apostrophes and y'all were like, it's like a comma at the top, but it's not really a comma. A comma goes down on the line, right? So let's do this. We'll say like, here's writing. Oops, let's not do that. Let's do it in blue. We have writing, and then we'll have a comma. So a comma looks like this. You can circle it so you remember. And then we'll always have something after a comma. Comma, words. And then we'll probably have a period at the end, okay? But a comma goes in the middle of a sentence for different reasons. And we're only going to talk about one reason right now. We're going to learn different reasons in the next couple weeks. But for right now, we're going to talk about we use a comma at different times when we have quotation marks, okay? So let's go ahead and label this guy comma. Okay? So sometimes in a sentence we have somebody say something at the beginning of a sentence and then it tells us who said it, right? So for example, let's find one in this book. Let's find it. Okay, so for example, right here, it says, What's wrong with you? She said. Okay, so in that case, we call this part right here, this she said, we call that a tag, because it's kind of like, think about a tag at the store on clothes that you buy. That tells you more information about it, doesn't it? It tells you like the price, it tells you the brand. So in this case, our tag, or like a Christmas tag, like a tag on a gift, tells you who it's from. In this case, our tag is going to tell us who said whatever's in quotation marks. Because if I just have quotation marks, anybody could have said that, right? But in the book that we read today about Snowflake Bentley, so in that book, it had Snowflake Bentley's name at the bottom so that we knew that he said that. Okay, stay with me. So we have a couple different situations that we're going to talk about. Our first situation, I think I'm on. Oh yeah, I'm good. I want you to draw a line like that. We're going to talk about 3 situations. We're actually just going to talk about, we're going to talk about 3. So I want you to divide the bottom of your page into 3 equal sections. My lines aren't perfect. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. Okay, so we're going to label all of these, the different situations that we might have. So we might have tag in front, so write kind of small, tag in front. We might have the tag at the end. Okay, or we might have tag in the middle. Tag in the middle. Okay, so we're going to talk about these three options, all right? So tag in front means that at the beginning of a sentence, it will say, Miss Hartgrove said, or Miss Hartgrove asked. It's always going to have a verb with it that has something to do with speaking. So think about all the ways we can have speaking verbs. We can say asked, exclaimed, yelled, whispered, bellowed. All of those are ways that we can say the way that someone said it, right? So we're always going to have that verb, and we're going to have who did that. And it always tells us kind of how the word should be spoken. That helps us when we're reading, because if I read this and it says, leave the boy alone, my father yelled. Well, I know how I'm going to read that in my brain. I'm not going to read it as leave the boy alone, right? That's not how a father yells. He would say, leave the boy alone. So that affects how I understand the story, right? So that's going to affect how I understand, how I show my person who I'm writing for, my reader. That's how I'm going to show them how I want my character to have said that. Okay? Anyway, so if we have our tag in the front, let's say that we have, let's say Judd asked when, capital W. When, good, capital W, make sure you know it's capital, is lunch. Okay? Judd asked when is lunch. Don't put any punctuation yet. Let's talk about it. So who's the speaker right now? Who is it? It's Judd, right? So what is Judd doing? He is asking something, right? So what punctuation mark should I have at the end of my sentence right here? If he's asking, I should have a question mark, right? Just like that. Now remember, quotation marks go around what? It goes around what someone has said, their quote, right? What did Judd say? What were his words that came out of his mouth? When is lunch, right? Did Judd say, Judd asked what is lunch? No, he didn't say Judd asked. He just did it, right? He just asked it. So we're only going to put quotation marks around the words that came out of his mouth. If you have a colored pencil or a skinny marker, I would use it right now for when we're putting our punctuation in, okay? Now, I put my quotation marks always on the outside of the end punctuation. That's really important. We don't do quotation marks and then question mark. We don't do that. We do our quotation marks go around the whole thing, which includes the punctuation. Okay? Now, the other thing that we have to make sure that this letter is capitalized. The beginning of what Judd said is his sentence, okay? The beginning of what he said is his sentence, and sentences start with capital letters, don't they? Yeah, they do. So this has to be capitalized. And then if you have a tag in the front, you gotta have a comma right here before you start your quotation marks. So tag in the front, Judd asked, and then there's a little pause. Commas kind of tell us to pause for a second. Not Judd asked when is lunch. We would say Judd asked when is lunch. You see how I had a little tiny pause there? And I have my quotation marks around what came out of his mouth, and I have in punctuation that tells me that goes with how he said it. Okay. So if Judd yelled, lunchtime, okay, I would have an exclamation point at the end. If Judd said, I like lunch, then we would have a period at the end because that's a statement, right? Okay. So when you have a tag in the front, here are the punctuation marks that you need, and you have to capitalize what he said. Now, what happens when I have a tag at the end? Let's say that it says, I love playing basketball. I love playing basketball. Okay. Ooh, something is loud. There's like an airplane or something. Sorry, got distracted. I love playing basketball, whispered Ainsley. Okay. So I love playing basketball, whispered Ainsley. So she's, first of all, whispered tells me how she said it, right? And I want to make sure that when I'm reading something that's in quotation marks, I look at how it's said and then I read it in that way. Okay. We'll talk more about that this week too. Now, what actually came out of Ainsley's mouth? I love playing basketball, right? Whispered Ainsley didn't come out of her mouth. Just I love playing basketball. Okay. And what type of sentence is I love playing basketball? Is it a statement, question, exclamation mark, exclamation, or command? It is a statement. So I would have a period. But when your tag is at the end, if it's a period, you would do a comma instead. I know it's confusing. It's weird. Okay. It's weird. I know. But if it was a question mark or exclamation point, you can do that. But if it's supposed to be, if it's a statement, a comma goes here. Okay. And I also need my period at the end of the sentence because whispered Ainsley is the end of that full sentence with what Ainsley said. Okay. So a few things to note here. This has to be capitalized. And this is lowercase. We're just going to say LC for lowercase. Okay. The tag does not need to be capitalized. It's not a new sentence. Okay. But this is a sentence. So her saying, I love playing basketball. That's a sentence, right? Yeah. Okay. We good? So quotation marks around what she said, comma instead of a period. Tag is at the end. Now the tag in the middle. Okay. Let's say that we have I'm trying to think of one. Let's say that we have, let's find one from the book. Let's find one. Let's do this one that the father did. Leave the boy alone, father yelled. Let's see what he has. So we'll just shorten it a little bit. Let's see. Leave him alone. Father yelled. Actually, guys, we're not going to do tag in the middle right now. We'll address that when we get to it, but we're just going to, you can just erase all of that. We're not even going to go there. Okay. I think we need to stick with tag in the front and tag at the end. Okay. Let's stick with those because I don't want to confuse you. I want y'all to get these two down first and then we'll talk about the last kind. Okay. Sorry for changing that on the fly, but yeah, so you are done. If you have tag in the front, tag at the end, let's actually circle. If you have a different color, I want you to underline your tag. Okay. Whispered Ainsley. Judd asked. That's the tag. Okay. And you can label it tag. 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 Okay. Okay, we're going to practice lots with this in the next couple days. So if it's confusing, it's okay. I want you to try the seesaw, but you need to do it by yourself. Remember, we're not having mom and dad check this one because I need to see what you know, and that's going to affect how we do our stuff tomorrow, okay? It's totally fine. If you don't understand, you do the absolute best that you can, okay? All right, I'll see you all tomorrow.